Hello, and welcome to our video looking at decolonization movements after World War II, as well as kind of different national and ethnic conflicts that happened in the late 20th century. In this video, we'll start with an introduction to self determination in the mandate system. Then we'll talk about different nationalist movements that develop, and then the separatist movements that develop in the 20th century. Let's get started looking at self determination in the mandate system. After World War I, President Woodrow Wilson advocated for this thing called self determination, or just this idea that former colonies or newly formed states would be able to hold their own free elections and organize their own government systems. While, of course, everybody's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Basically, it doesn't happen. The League of Nations does not enforce this, and it inspires a lot of nationalist sentiment around the world. And British and French colonies that had participated in the war are going to be pretty disappointed with the broken promise that, they would be able to have their own freedom. Also coming out of these World War I treaties is the mandate system, which was set up by the League of Nations to set up administrative rule over former German and Ottoman territories. And the British and the French are the ones that are going to be doing this. And this will affect the Middle East the most. The rulers of the Middle East, they're very offended and they're upset that they're not given their own self determination. And it's one of the main reasons for the mandates is so that the French and the British can really access oil in that region at a much lower, cost. Okay, now that we've laid a little bit of the background, let's go ahead and dive into the nationalist movements that will begin kind of right here after World War II. After World War II, the push for decolonization really accelerates. The United Nations Charter from the, newly created United Nations recognizes the right to self-determination, but Cold War tensions are going to complicate things. Many nationalist movements had to fight colonial powers or they had to choose to navigate between the United States or the Soviet Union in order to gain support. We're going to move on to looking at some specific examples of nationalist movements. And the first one we're going to look at is in Indochina, where France ruled over Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. So, Vietnamese nationalists led by Ho Chi Minh used guerrilla warfare tactics to defeat the French by the mid 1950s. And Cambodia and Laos gained independence soon after. But the United States steps in to stop communism in Vietnam. They're afraid of that, the containment of communism. But by 1975, America is driven out as well, making it one of the most famous examples of post colonial resistance. Next, we have North Africa. Now, France released Morocco and Tunisia in 1956, but held on to Algeria because it had a settler population. There's a lot of French kind of nationals living there, and it takes a brutal war for Algerians to win independence in 1962. It was a very bloody and hard-fought win. Then in Southern Africa, decolonization we see is a lot more peaceful at first. But in places like Angola, Cold War tensions are going to turn liberation into a proxy war between the United States and the Soviet Union, who are going to back different factions of the Angolan Civil War. And that's going to last even into the very early 2000s. And then we have kind of the most iconic example of the decolonization movement, and that's India. So, if you recall, the Indian National Congress was set up quite a while before, and it is going to push for independence, especially after over 1.5 million Indians fight for Britain between World War I and World War II. So, the leader of this movement, of course, is led by Gandhi, who uses civil disobedience and nonviolent protests to kind of get his point across. And in 1947, the British grant independence to India and they split the region into India, Pakistan, and then later on Bangladesh. This split is also called the partition. It caused massive migration and violence as they split up India between, the Hindu state of India and then the Muslim state of Pakistan. And it's a major turning point for the fall of the British Empire. Like India was really the crown jewel in their collection. And at this point, they're really just kind of a country at this point, no longer an empire. So next we'll talk about different separatist movements. So even after colonies gained independence, nationalist and separatist movements continued within Europe and the former Soviet Union. And these movements often focused on things like ethnic identity and autonomy from centralized governments. Our first example of this is going to be the Basques in Spain. So, Basque has been a region that has its own culture and language, very different from the rest of Spain. And throughout most of its history, has been kind of an autonomous region. They've been allowed to continue doing kind of their own thing. But under the Spanish dictator Francisco Franco, they lost autonomy. And the militant group ETA was formed in the 1960s and carried out attacks that killed over 800 people. After Franco's death, some autonomy will be returned, and the ETA disbands in 2018 officially. Next, we have the Flemish movement. In Belgium, the Flemish people in the north that speak Dutch have pushed for separation from the French speaking south. While there's both left and right wing separatist groups, only about 40% of Flemings support full independence. So far, Belgium has remained unified, though there's a lot of tensions that persist as the Flemish people uh, really see themselves as being different. And then in my brain, kind of the most iconic separatist movement is Ireland and the IRA. So Ireland remained divided between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK and it's mostly Protestant, and then the Republic of Ireland, which is Catholic and it's its own place. So the militant IRA, the Irish Republican Army, launched a violent campaign to unite Ireland into one Irish country. Peace efforts will increase with the creation of the EU, which helps ease some of the border tensions to make them less kind of distinct. But the violence still is there. I mean, it's decreased, but the issue isn't entirely resolved. If you get the oh, what's it called? When you travel abroad and you get like messages from the government, warnings about different things for when you're traveling, as the State Department, that's what it is, State Department. I still get different messages sometimes from the State Department saying that watch out for like IRA activity in Ireland. Then we have Chechnya. So Chechnya is a Muslim majority region in Russia. Separatists declared independence in 1991 after the fall of the Soviet Union. But Russia will invade Chechnya in 1994, causing over 100,000 deaths and massive displacement. And they're really doing this because Chechnya is a really oil rich region and they want that oil. So, though violence has lessened over time, Chechnya remains tightly controlled by Russia, and tensions still simmer there beneath the surface. And then the most tragic example we have of those kind of ethnic and nationalist conflicts here in separatist movements comes with Eastern Europe. So in the 1990s, the country of Yugoslavia was dissolved, and we know it became Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. Serbian militants lead a nationalist Serbian movement to keep Serbia over control of Croatia and Bosnia. And those forces are the ones that are going to drive an ethnic cleansing of Albanians into Kosovo. They carry out a genocide, really, of about 250,000 people. It forces the international community to really step up and confront the consequences of this uh, and realize that, like, we have a responsibility to stop unchecked identity based violence. In the 20th century, we see several different examples of nationalism leading to genocide, to specifically targeting ethnic groups, religious groups, what have you, and trying to completely wipe them away. And a lot of that is in the name of nationalism, of the nation state, of the good of the nation. So ultimately, all of this kind of leads to new boundaries being drawn and these genocides being carried out. And the idea that we as an international community have a role in stopping these types of mass atrocities. Okay, and on that somber note, we've reached the end of our time today. Thanks for watching.